So here we are about to begin my extended thoughts for all 10 of the top 10 changes I want to see for Disney Infinity 3.0 in the toy box. We're going to start with number 10. And my number 10 is a increased number of co-op partners in the toy box. So what does more players in the toy box actually mean? Well, ultimately it means more options, and I'll give a few examples. First off, obviously we can have greater interaction with more players online, specifically in the context of, well, let's take my current toy box, and I'll probably draw upon this a little bit. But I built a toy box for this week's multiplayer challenge. I created a 4-player toy box inspired by the Hunger Games. And I had this idea that I wanted to create an option for a player to effectively be the dungeon master, games master, so to speak, who could then trigger traps. But ultimately what their greater role would be is actually be able to turn the toy box into a spectator sport and actually to be able to control cameras. So effectively they would be live streaming to Twitch, and then they could step on certain switches or hit certain switches and be switching camera angles of the arena to capture the action. Now obviously with only 4 players, I would have to allocate that 4th player to that streaming role, that broadcast role, let's call it, meaning that my toy box now can only be 3 players competing against each other. So that's an obvious example of how more players can give greater options when it comes to gameplay mechanics. There's been other examples of the toy box that I've done and others have done in the past where we've created entertainment content specifically for YouTube using the toy box. And again, quite often you have positions that there's this technical need for a player to be controlling a certain thing. And so, for instance, let's say I'm capturing footage using my account. So I'm in the toy box and I've set a camera. Again, I've only got the option then of up to 3 people to help me control the content I'm creating, assuming you've got one other character off to the side who is controlling visual effects, for instance. Maybe they're turning on snow effects or anything like that. Now you're only left with the potential of 2 actors in your toy box. So again, that limits the kind of stories you can tell. So I guess that's in a nutshell of what that brings, but ultimately I think everyone can agree that the more players we can get in a toy box at the same time is going to create not necessarily more fun gameplay, but certainly greater options of gameplay. The only other area where more people in a toy box helps is actually in the construction and building of a toy box. Many hands make light work, so to speak. And I think we're heading down a road where we're going to see more and more toy box building collaboration work. And I just think it's incredible if you could have 8 toy box pros in the toy box at once, all working on a toy box together. Ultimately that's going to result in a quicker turnaround in toy box creations. So I don't see a negative other than maybe performance of the game to having more people online. But this is not Call of Duty. It doesn't matter if there's the odd, if it's not running 100% at the right frame rate and if it's lagging a little bit. I mean, ultimately we're just talking about building in the toy box and playing in the toy box. I think we can, hopefully it won't be there, but I think I would trade a little bit of a performance hit in order to have at least 5 or 6 in a toy box at once, preferably 8. Any more than 8 and it's a bit, well, that's, what's the word, diminishing returns, more than 8. But anyway, that's my extended thoughts for number 10. Please let me know in the comments what you would do if you could have more players in a toy box. Perhaps some game mechanic ideas that you would put into place if you had that ability to have more players in a toy box at once? Is it just a flat out bad idea? I want to know. Let me know in the comments, and we will discuss those as always in a future episode of the Inside Infinity podcast. And thank you for watching.